Hi there. So, ever since Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign, where he gained a greater national prominence, there has been a resurgence of sorts of people in the United States identifying as socialists or even communists. Some fall more into the camp of the Social Democrats, which social democracy is more like welfare capitalism and doesn't really present any challenge to the capitalist status quo, but for this particular context, this is neither here nor there. For the purpose of this list, we're going to be looking at people who have explicitly identified themselves as socialists, whether that be democratic socialists, or Marxists, or some other variant of leftist ideology. Looking at both historical figures and people of the modern day, here are 10 famous people that you might not have known are socialists. Number 10 is professional wrestling legend Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette is a polarizing figure in the world of professional wrestling, to say the least. With a career spanning more than 30 years, working for the National Wrestling Alliance, World Championship Wrestling, the WWE, Total Nonstop Action, Ring of Honor, and even running his own company called Smoky Mountain Wrestling in the mid-90s, Cornette is considered by many to be a legend in this field, even if his mouth and his opinions sometimes get him into trouble with both fans and detractors alike. Though previously he only called himself a Democrat, Cornette has called himself a Democratic Socialist since at least late 2017, at least according to his Twitter. He supported the 2018 March for Our Lives rally and has been a vocal critic of Republican politicians and right-wing politics in general. His critiques are also often laced with an extreme amount of profanity, such as referring to former President Donald Trump as President Pigshit, and calling Melania Trump the first cunt. That's corny, everybody. Number 9. Famed writer Walter Lipman. For the uninitiated, Walter Lipman is considered one of the greatest writers/journalists in American history. Lipman wrote several books, news articles, philosophical essays, and book reviews during his illustrious 60-year career. As a writer, Walter Lipman was one of the first people to bring the phrase Cold War into the popular lexicon. He was one of the founders of the magazine The New Republic, and even served as a research advisor to the 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, among other grand feats. To go over all of Lipman's achievements would take much more time than a list like this could handle, so there's just a few. Although he would reject the label later in his life, while still holding beliefs considered progressive for most of his time on Earth, there was actually a point where Walter Lippmann considered himself a socialist and was even a part of a socialist government. Lipman was one of the founding members of the Harvard Socialist Club and was a member of the New York branch of the Socialist Party. For 4 months in 1912, he actually served as an executive secretary to the first ever socialist mayor in New York State's history, George R. Lunn, during his first term as mayor of Schenectady in 1912. He would resign from the position after 4 months, though some sources say 2 months, due to his belief that the socialists in Schenectady weren't really doing enough work in line with the socialist cause, though he still praised their progressive efforts. Number 8. Acclaimed actor Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi, Dracula himself, was a socialist? Well, at one point in his career, believe it or not, yes. Or at the very least, he did things that were very much in line with socialism. One of the fathers of early horror movies, Hungarian-American actor Bela Lugosi made a name for himself in Hollywood by taking on roles such as Dracula, Igor, Frankenstein's monster, as well as several other roles, including being a part of some of notorious B-movie aficionado Ed Wood's projects prior to his death. Before moving to the United States, though, Bela Lugosi briefly served in World War I and was later involved with the Actors Union in Hungary. He was also a supporter of the Hungarian Communist Party as well as the short-lived Hungarian Soviet Republic in 1919, even having a part in said government before it was crushed by future Nazi collaborators. With his life endangered, Lugosi fled to the United States where he worked as a laborer before making his name in the movies. Even in the US though, he was involved in union work, with Lugosi being one of the earliest supporters of the Screen Actors Guild. Lugosi would also be a vocal opponent of fascism during World War II, calling for Nazism to be, and I quote, wiped out everywhere in his position to the likes of, or rather his opposition to the likes of Adolf Hitler and Hungarian dictator Miklos Horthy. Number 7. Lead singer of The Used, Bert McCracken. It's kind of funny that, similar to communists and anarchists, emo kids just tend to love the color combination of black and red. As an emo kid in high school, I would know. Other than, My Chemical Romance or Fall Out Boy, one of the bigger emo bands from the 2000s and early 2010s is The Used. With multiple gold and platinum records under their belt, The Used has cemented itself as one of the most significant bands in the sphere of emo, garnering thousands, if not millions, of fans throughout the world with what some might say is a radical sound. But radical doesn't just describe their music, it would also describe the politics of their frontman, Bert McCracken. Although he's been sure to tell us that he's not a fan of examples of, say, the Soviet Union or China, McCracken has been vocal about his support for socialism and explained in a 2014 interview with Vice that his ideal society would be a, and I quote, horizontal group movement and effort, something that lines up with the beliefs of anarchism or anarcho-communism. In an interview with HM Magazine that same year, McCracken discussed numerous things outlining his affinity for and understanding of socialism, including referencing Paulo Freire's book Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Noam Chomsky, Class Conflict, and reading Karl Marx. Number 6. Actor and writer, Wallace Shawn. Rex from Toy Story is a socialist? The guy from The Princess Bride? You might think I'm kidding, but no, it's the truth. Wallace Shawn is a beloved actor, voice actor, playwright, and essayist, having been featured in programs designed for the entertainment of both adults and children throughout his career. He's been in Pixar movies, he's been in Cartoon Network shows, he's been in numerous theatrical productions, and on top of his acting portfolio, Wallace Shawn is a self-described socialist. Shawn's political stances have been highlighted in certain films, such as being one of the people interviewed in Michael Moore's 2009 documentary, Capitalism, A Love Story. In 2011, he penned an essay aptly titled, Why I Call Myself a Socialist, providing a philosophical reasoning as to why he holds the positions he does. And finally, for years, Wallace Shawn has been a staunch supporter for the freedom of Palestine and for the end of violence between Palestine and Israel, being a member on the board of the group Jewish Voice for Peace. He's called for an end to the violence several times and is one of the voices today calling for a ceasefire. By the way, free Palestine. Number 5. Professional wrestler, Zack Sabre Jr. British professional wrestler Zack Sabre Jr. is considered by many to be one of the greatest technical wrestlers in the world today, with some even arguing that he is the best professional wrestler of the modern day, period. He's won championships and tournaments in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Revolution Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and numerous independent promotions, as well as making brief appearances in both WWE and All Elite Wrestling. Sabre has used his platform as a famous professional wrestler to speak on his political beliefs as a socialist. A supporter of the United Kingdom's Labour Party, the former IWGP Tag Team Champion considers himself to be a socialist. During his entrance for his match at NJPW's Wrestle Kingdom event in 2023, Zack Sabre Jr. called on then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to pay nurses in the UK a living wage, calling him a dickhead in the process. Nice. He's also sold shirts with anti-conservative and anti-fascist statements on them, donating proceeds of those shirts to institutions such as the American Civil Liberties Union and UK food bank network Trussell Trust. Additionally, after a loss in New Japan's yearly G1 Climax tournament, ZSJ went on an in-character rant, though likely fueled by real-life frustrations, blaming his loss on being distracted by the election of the conservative Boris Johnson in 2019. Number 4. Comedian Tim Heidecker. Comedy has always had a political character to it. Just look at revered comics such as George Carlin and Bill Hicks. Half of their shtick is that they were political comedians. Tim Heidecker, rather than being blatant in his comedy, has typically gone with a more absurdist path for his career in comedy. Specifically highlighted by his collaborations with Eric Wareheim to create hits with Adult Swim such as Tim and Eric's Awesome Show, Great Job, and Check It Out with Dr. Steve Brule. While there has existed political undertones in some of the duo's comedy as well as in his solo projects, Tim Heidecker became much more outspoken politically in the late 2010s, of course after the election of Donald Trump. As stated on Heidecker's Twitter, he joined the Democratic Socialists of America in mid-2018. In mid-2022, it was revealed on the Twitter account for the Twin Cities chapter of the DSA that they were invited by Heidecker to run a table at one of his shows. Finally, since 2017, Heidecker has been creating music specifically parodying the politics of the far right in the US, as well as the presidency and general antics of Donald Trump. Number 3. Comedian Lewis Black. Another comedian. This has to be a joke now. But no, there's no joke. Perpetually angry comedian Lewis Black considers himself to be a socialist, or at least did at one point. Lewis Black's whole gimmick is that he's a comedian seemingly always on the verge of exploding. He's the personification of rage, which is accentuated by his casting as anger in the Disney Pixar movies Inside Out and its recent sequel. Black's comedy has always been critical of the two-party system in the US, and in many ways of the system of capitalism, as seen in his stand-up and some of his other works, such as his 2008 show, Lewis Black's Root of All Evil. In a 2013 interview with the publication Westward, Lewis Black spoke about his dissatisfaction with the inability of the Democratic Party to really challenge the Republicans, as well as his disdain for the general actions of the Republican Party. In a 2016 interview with the Columbus Dispatch, Black spoke of many things ranging from changes to The Daily Show to his own political views. Black used this interview to speak highly of Bernie Sanders during his presidential campaign, saying that he was thrilled to see a socialist running for president in his lifetime. Number 2. Retired MMA fighter Jeff Monson. A black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a veteran of combat sports, having competed in the UFC, Strikeforce, Pride, and numerous other promotions, Jeff Monson is a force to be reckoned with in the octagon and the boxing ring. Besides hitting hard between the ropes and in the cage, Monson hits hard with his politics as well. Describing himself as an anarcho-communist, Monson has been a vocal critic of the United States and both major political parties within its government. In the early to mid-2000s, Monson was especially critical of George W. Bush and his administration, being seen wearing a tank top to the gym saying, "Assassinate Bush." Based. Monson is also a member of the radical labor union, the Industrial Workers of the World, and since 2015, Monson has been greatly involved in affairs relating to Russia and nearby regions, seeking Russian citizenship and expressing interest in joining the Russian Party. Not the Russian Party, what's that? The Communist Party of the Russian Federation in 2016. Number 1. Rapper Noname. Rap and hip-hop has been entrenched with radical roots since its formation, hence roots, if not early into its formation in the 1980s. Legendary groups and artists such as Public Enemy and Tupac have used their musical performances, their platforms, as a means of espousing beliefs and rhetoric in line with anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, and socialism. Since garnering prominence through her own music and her affiliation with Chance the Rapper, Chicago rapper Noname has been carrying this legacy of radical hip-hop well into the modern day. For any fans of Noname seeing this, you're probably saying, yeah, no shit. But if you've never heard of Noname, or you've only heard a small selection of her work, you probably wouldn't know much about her mission. Noname's lyrics have been seen as a love letter to figures such as Karl Marx, as well as the radical black politics most prominent in the 20th century, such as that of the Black Panthers. In 2020, she started the Noname Book Club, with the rapper calling it a little bit of a fuck you to Amazon and kind of a fuck you to the FBI. The book club has focused on studying radical works while also promoting bookstores owned by people of color and working with local libraries. This was originally supposed to be an article that I submitted to the website Top Tens, but they never got back to me. So I figured, hey, maybe this would make a decent video. I might make another video like this, you know, we'll see. So, if you enjoy this video, if you like the work that I do, if you have the means to and you would like to, please consider supporting the channel through Buy Me a Coffee or by using my Swagbucks referral link in the description. My name is Jimmy. Thank you for watching.